Welcome back in, everybody, to Sports and Money. KC, Ben Parker here. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're enjoying the Kansas City off season. Got a little bit of catching up to do here on some of the Kansas City business moves that they've been doing over the past 2 or 3 weeks. We haven't covered all of them, so I thought I'd take a little bit of time here tonight. Might be a little sloppy. I got numbers all over the board again, as usual, but we'll work our way through it. We'll try not to waste a lot of time in so doing. Let's start off first with that Chris Jones massive deal. Of course, that's been talked about ad nauseum across the nation, and I'm sure especially on the Kansas City Sports Talk Radio. But let's take a quick look at that deal first, and then we'll move on to Snead, and then Reed and Amenahue, and then a couple of my final thoughts here on all of this kind of put together, if you will. Here's the Chris Jones contract at a glance, and I pulled this straight off of Spot Track, so go check them out. They do a great job. Next year, 2024, that's the season coming up, right? He's going to be sitting, and again, let me call out the numbers real quick. It's a 5-year, $159 million deal, I think with a 95 guarantee, something like that. So, season coming up, he's going to be 30 years old, okay? And his cap hit's basically going to be $7.5 million, and his dead cap hit is $60 million. So you're good there. Chris Jones is playing as good right now as he ever has. I mean, he's just playing fantastic. And so there's no question that bringing Chris Jones back for next season, for 2024, for the Super Bowl run at 3 in a row, which nobody's ever done in terms of Super Bowls, there's no question that that's a great choice for next year. So you're totally safe there. I'm not even going to dwell on that. Where you start to get a little risky is the following season. So this is 2025. He'll be 31 years old heading into the season. Cap hit of 35 mil with a dead cap hit of 53. So basically, when you're looking at this season right here, 2025, there's risk there for a couple of reasons. One is you're not going to be able to get out of it. You know, if you say, hey, we're going to cut the guy loose for some reason because he looks old in 24, $53 million dead cap hit, you're just not going to be able to work your way out of that under any kind of. So then the second thing is, well, the age thing. And we've mentioned several times here that Kansas City doesn't like to sign guys who are at 29, 30 years old. They just don't like to sign them into massive contracts. Well, they do it with Chris Jones because they can't replace him. And we all know it. Everybody in the league knows it. Kansas City knows it. I know it. You know it. We all know it. So, but there is some risk right there in 2025, combined with the fact that Patrick Mahomes is scheduled to make, I think it's $65 million that season. So when you put Mahomes together with Chris Jones, that's $100 million of cap space on just two guys. Just two guys. And say, well, they can restructure. They can. We'll talk about that. But that also brings its own set of kind of choppy waters here too. But that's year number 2 is where it starts to get a risk. Now, when you move into year 3, that's 2026, this is kind of the crux year. This is very important. If they see, and again, I didn't check on the double check on when the guarantees kicked in as far as locking in base salaries and stuff for 2026. But if they see in 2025 that, hey, Chris is starting to look a little slow, not quite what he used to be, then they can look ahead in 2026 and they can actually just let him go because it would be an $18 million cap hit, $18 million dead cap hit, and that would be a $41 million cap hit that they would be letting go, essentially saving $23 million if they wanted to do a post-June 1st cut, and they basically could probably save about half that, $9 million on the following year, which would be basically like a $31 million savings in 2026 if they want to. That's the important year right there. And so they've got to be able to look ahead in 2025 and see how he's looking and decide what they want to do right there, because he's going to be 32 years old in 2026. Now listen, Chris Jones looks fantastic, and there's no real reason to think that he's not going to be fantastic in 24, 25, and 26, other than that statistically, players really fall off at right around the age of 30. Not every player is the same, but across the league, there is a massive drop-off, and Kansas City knows that. That's why they typically don't re-sign guys at these ages. When you come to 2027, you're safe because you have a cap hit of $35 million, but there's a dead cap hit of only 12, so you can let him walk that year if you need to. And certainly same thing in 2028. You're safe there, even at the age of 34. With a $41 million cap hit, you can walk away with only a $6 million dead cap hit. So good year, risk year, crux year, because you need to make a decision there. and then 2 safe seasons right there. So overall, listen, it's not a bad contract, especially for a guy who's as good as Chris Jones is, and he's amazing. He truly is irreplaceable. Someday he's going to go, and Kansas City's not going to be able to replace him. So that's just how that sits. The one caveat to all this, and I will kind of, again, y'all know that a few weeks ago I said, hey, I would let Chris Jones go and keep L'Jarius Sneed. And long term, I'm not sure that's not the best decision. But for a Super Bowl run next year, there's no doubt that Chris Jones will help the most and make the most difference. The one caveat to all of this is if Kansas City does or is tempted to do what a lot of teams are often tempted to do, you get to 2025 and you see that $35 million cap hit and you're like, geez, that's a lot. Let's borrow about $8 million of that. Let's restructure his 2025 cap hit. Let's restructure it to the tune of $8 million, which isn't that much, to be honest. But you divide that $4 million, so $4 million goes here, and $4 million goes here. Well, all of a sudden, what was your crux year, in which you had a little bit of flexibility, kind of goes away, because now you're looking at $45 million cap hit then, because you restructured here, and now your dead cap hit is up to $22 million. So now you're looking at some bigger, dangerous numbers. And then here at 33, what was a safe year now becomes $37 million cap hit with a $16 million dead cap hit. So if they are tempted to restructure, and I'm sure they will be, again, even just to the tune of $8 million, it makes these 2 seasons a lot more complicated, which brings with it the entire contract being more complicated. So the key to this is, number one, they're going for a Super Bowl this year, 3rd in a row. Nobody's ever done that. Not the Steelers, not the 49ers. I mean, nobody. Again, nobody's ever done that. Not the vaunted Patriots. 3 in a row in terms of actual Super Bowl modern era. Nobody's done it. So I totally get it. The second key is Chris Jones being healthy for at least to the age of 32. If he can at least be healthy there, be his full normal self, then this contract works, even with the large cap hit, which does complicate things. I mean, that's quite a bit of pressure you're putting on the cap when you have Mahomes at 65 and Jones at 35. That's $100 million for 2 players just right off the top. I mean, it doesn't even count for those offensive linemen you got to pay. Doesn't count for anybody else. It's just Mahomes and Jones at $100 million cap. But anyway, I'm okay with the contract. Totally understand why they did it. Have zero problem with the Chris Jones thing. It's not without risk, though, so just keep that in mind. Along with that, partnering with that, were some cheaper moves that they did. So they brought back Derek Nottie on the defensive line, Mike Pennell on the defensive line, and Tershawn Wharton on the defensive line. What I like about that, again, those are all very cheap. I think 1-season deals. They're all for like $1 million or $2.1 million, stuff like that. Very, very cheap. Basically your whole defensive line now is back. The continuity is there. It's not a dominant defensive line. Even with Chris Jones, it's not a dominant defensive line. But when you have that much continuity, and these guys have all been together for quite a while now, so they all know what they're doing, and you've got Chris Jones constantly getting pressure on the quarterback or getting double teams, and you've got all these guys who are extremely familiar with each other, you basically kind of sort of have what you get on offensive lines that have been together for a long time. And there's a certain amount of benefit, surplus there that you don't get when you're bringing players in and year out. So defensive line's good. And again, of course, bringing back Chris Jones for the Super Bowl run, number 3. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's get to the L'Jarius Sneed trade. So they traded him away for a 3rd-round pick, essentially. There were a couple of 7 swaps in there as well. I said on the video 2 or 3 weeks ago that basically if you keep Sneed, Jones is gone, and if you keep Jones, then Sneed is gone, and that proved to be true. That didn't have to be the case, but that was basically what was going to happen. And I said that I would keep Sneed because of age and because of money, and I would let Jones go because of age and because of money, and ultimately in the long run, that might be the better move. But I probably wouldn't have won a Super Bowl next year. I probably would have missed out on Super Bowl number 3 next year, because they didn't have Jones present. It's just going to take some time, whenever Jones goes, to remake the defense into something that can continue to get pressure on the quarterback, even if you're doing it with 2 or 3 different players. So anyway, Sneed traded to the Titans. What I want to look at, though, is the Sneed contract. We don't have all the final numbers. What we do know is that it's 4 years, $76 million total, with a 55 guaranteed, or 55 basically, yeah, 55 dead cap the first year, but 55 guaranteed basically is what that is. So what I did here, I put a set of my own numbers in here. These numbers are mine. 76 is real, 55 is real, 70. These numbers in here are all mine. To look at what Kansas City could have done had they wanted to keep Snead too for a Super Bowl run, because I'm hearing some people say, hey, the Chiefs have gotten better during the offseason, and I just don't see it that way. When I see Snead, I see a guy who's a tremendous player who does all kinds of difference-making things all over the football field. And then you look at Hollywood Brown, the wide receiver they brought in, while he does add to the wide receiver room, I just don't think he's anywhere near the difference maker that Snead is. So at the moment, pre-draft, Kansas City, I think, is net worse, not by a lot, but they are net worse because Snead loss, Brown addition just doesn't add up. But they've still got the draft to go, and that'll put them back in the positive of net better, I think. But had they wanted to keep Snead, and this is the real quick point I wanted to make right here, they wanted to keep L'Jarius Snead, they could have kept him in 2024, that's this upcoming season, probably for a cap hit of about $15 million, maybe even less if they wanted to do the Chris Jones thing. But let's not even backload it that much. Let's just keep him for $15 million. They could have done that, and then in 2025, you got $17 million here. So those aren't bad cap hits, especially for a guy like Snead, who Andy Reid had said after he was gone, we can put him over on the best receiver. And then we've seen how many athletic plays. Listen, the plays he made on Lamar Jackson, not one but twice. On the AFC Championship game were tremendous plays. The plays he made in the Super Bowl, all through the regular season, plays against the run, plays in the slot when they want to drop him in there. Just tremendous difference-making plays, and that means, guys, this is a guy that is doing things that your average defensive back just can't do. So, had they wanted to keep Snead for the next 2 seasons, it would have been cap hits of 15 and 17. And that's really just not that much for a guy that can do what he can do. And then that would have brought you to 2026, where again, cap hit of 20 with a dead cap of maybe 15. And had you just really been in a pinch and you needed to get rid of him in 26, you could have P6-1'd him. And that would be something like an $8 million dead cap hit in 26 with $7 million dead cap hit over in 27. So, and then by the time you got to 27, you could have just let him walk without hardly any dead cap hit at all. There was a way to keep L'Jarius Snead, even with the Chris Jones contract. And you might say, well, Ben, where's that money coming from? Because we're kind of out of money. Well, it would have come here. And I mentioned this in the previous video 2-3 weeks ago. Justin Reid, Charles Omenihu. And listen, I know somebody out there screaming at me that, hey, the Chiefs have plenty of defensive backs. And they do. And I'll get to that just here a little bit later in the video. And I know somebody else is screaming at me, hey, Ben, they're trying to keep adequate starters in all these different places. But listen, Reid and Omenihu together, and I'm convinced of this, Reid and Omenihu together, while they are fine players who contribute in significant ways, put them together and they still don't make the difference, that separating difference ability that L'Jarius Snead offers in several different ways. And so I really thought, had it been me, I would have tried to find a way to keep Snead and let Reid or Omenihu or both go, because Reid's cap is going to be 14 this year. Omenihu is going to be 11. You probably could have kept Snead for right around either one of these cap hits if you'd have wanted to. So you could have let either one of these players go and kept a guy, kept one of these guys right here who would be an adequate starter or adequate sub, and still kept Snead here if you really wanted to get serious about this Super Bowl run this year, number 3. I really wanted to keep Snead in the building. So they didn't do that. I understand it. We're going to get to that here in just a second. But you could have. That would have been a way that you certainly could have kept L'Jarius Snead. It broke down like this. Not a bad contract. Tennessee Titans get a pretty good player for a not bad contract. All right, so that is what it is. But again, I'm fine with that. I said more than likely you keep Jones, Snead gone, you keep Snead, Jones gone. What the Chiefs are doing here, and this is actually very intelligent, okay? This is something that not all teams do. They are playing to their strength. They very well understand that over the past few seasons, they have been a lot better at drafting and developing defensive backs, specifically cornerbacks more so than safety. They've been way better at that than they have been at drafting and developing guys who can get to the quarterback. And they've tried. They've tried several times and in several ways, both at defensive tackle and at edge and at linebacker, to bring guys in who have some kind of ability to get to the quarterback. And it's not been very successful. Now, it's not to say it's been a smashing failure either, because it hasn't. But they have come nowhere near. I mean, nobody's even in the same, not only is nobody on the same level as Chris Jones as far as getting to the quarterback, nobody on the Chiefs is even on the next level close to getting to the quarterback as Chris Jones is. So basically it's Jones up here at A level, nobody on B level, and people that can get the quarterback at all, they're down at like C plus level for the Kansas City Chiefs. That's about it. That's how much of a difference there is. So again, more support for keeping Chris Jones. He's irreplaceable, I get it. And the Chiefs are playing to their strengths. So when you let Snead go, because they have other young guys there that they're drafting and developing who look pretty good, maybe you can't replace Snead altogether, but you've got other guys there. So I do like the intelligence level there. That is something that you don't see all NFL teams do. There are lots of other NFL teams who don't follow this pattern. So I'm all in favor of that. That's actually some very good intelligence. I like that part of it. Financially, the only part I'm really not okay with, this is the only part. Financially, why not keep Snead and let go of one of these guys? Kansas City's answer to that, I'm sure Brett is watching my videos. I'm sure Brett's answer to that is, hey, Ben, I want to take that $25 million. And again, because I already think I can draft and develop defensive backs, which I can. I want to take that $25 million next year in 2025, and I want to have that cap space, all of it, not part of it, but all of it, to re-sign my offensive lineman, who is, I think, Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey. So you're going to need space there, and I get it. And we don't want to restructure too much. So this is Kansas City's way of being smart, intelligent, not blowing the cap out of the water. We haven't seen too many teams restructure too much and have a lot of long-term success with it. They usually get by with it for a season. That's about it. Whether it's the Eagles, the Buccaneers, the Saints, the Steelers to a degree, Buffalo Bills certainly to a degree. All these teams that have tried to keep hold of their players, restructure the heck out of it, we're not seeing them win a lot when it comes to 2 and 3 seasons in a row. They usually get by with it for one season. So Kansas City here doing a smart thing. I don't expect these two guys to be on the roster next year, or at least not at these prices, certainly. I think they're both going to be free agents. They're both going to be gone. And that money there, basically in theory, and this doesn't always match up this way, but basically in theory, that money right there will go to Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith more than likely. So you keep your good interior offensive line intact, and you keep Patrick Mahomes happy, which is very important. So, all right, that's it. There's a lot to think about. There was nothing smooth or easy here. My way wasn't smooth and easy. Doing this right here, Chris Jones, keeping these guys here, nothing smooth or easy here. And the reason it's not smooth and easy is because of the Mahomes contract. The Mahomes contract is so large every year, it continues to put pressure on the cap. And that's okay. Kansas City is good enough. They're finding ways around it. They're finding ways to win. So there's nothing smooth or easy here. There won't be. There never will be again. Every year for Kansas City, it will basically be choppy waters. But they are navigating their way through brilliantly. 2 Super Bowl wins in a row. They're doing a heck of a job. Nothing here is smooth or easy. No matter what way you come up with it, anything that y'all had come up with too might be just as good, but nothing will be smooth or easy. Continue to mix match and do all that. All right, that's it. Thank you everybody for listening. Have a great one. We got more stuff coming up. See you next time. Bye.